Starmer's controversial China trip. Keir Starmer has been nicknamed Here Keir for his constant foreign travel, and now he's planning to jet off to China early next year despite spy warnings, security concerns, and accusations he's a soft touch on Beijing. This would be the first visit by a British Prime Minister to China in 7 years, coming right after his government allegedly let a Chinese spy trial collapse and while they're considering approving what critics call Beijing's main spy base in the heart of London, complete with suspicious basement rooms. If you're thinking this sounds like spectacularly terrible timing and even worse judgment, congratulations, you're not alone. So buckle up because we're about to dissect why Starmer's China trip is causing absolute fury across the political spectrum, why Priti Patel is accusing Labour of kowtowing to a country that poses a genuine security threat to Britain, and whether chasing Chinese trade deals is worth compromising national security. This is British foreign policy at its most controversial, and whether you think engagement with China is pragmatic or dangerous, you cannot ignore the optics of a prime minister being labeled soft on Beijing while planning his next visit there. Right, let's start with the basic facts, because context is absolutely crucial here. Starmer is reportedly planning to visit China early next year, which would be the first visit by a British prime minister in 7 years. The last PM to visit was Theresa May back in 2018, and even that trip was controversial, given growing concerns about Chinese influence operations and espionage. In the intervening years, those security concerns haven't decreased, they've intensified dramatically. The stated reason for the visit is trade. Labour is pushing for improvements to boost the UK's struggling economy, and China represents a massive market that British businesses want access to. That's the pragmatic economic argument. Britain needs growth, China has money and markets, therefore engagement with China makes economic sense even if it's politically uncomfortable. It's the kind of cold calculation that governments make all the time when national interests conflict. But here's where things get messy, because this isn't happening in a vacuum. The government has recently faced political fury over claims that allowed the trial of 2 accused Chinese spies in Westminster to collapse. The details of why that trial collapsed are murky, but the perception is that Labour either bungled the prosecution or didn't prioritize it, allowing alleged Chinese intelligence operatives to escape justice. Whether that perception is fair or not, it's damaged Labour's credibility on handling Chinese security threats. Then there's the proposed Chinese mega embassy in London, which Labour is reportedly considering approving. Critics, and there are many, claim this would be China's main spy base on the continent, complete with basement rooms that Beijing refuses to explain and that many suspect would be used for interrogating or even torturing dissidents. The idea that Britain would approve such a facility while claiming to take Chinese espionage seriously is, to put it mildly, a difficult circle to square. Priti Patel's statement is absolutely scathing in its assessment of Labour's China policy. She accuses them of kowtowing to China, which is deliberately loaded language that implies subservience rather than diplomatic engagement. She points out that Starmer is jetting off to Beijing just weeks after the collapse of the Chinese spy case under his watch, which frames the trip as either spectacularly tone-deaf or evidence that Labour doesn't take Chinese espionage seriously. The timing of the trip relative to the embassy decision is particularly pointed. If Labour approves the mega embassy and then Starmer visits China shortly afterward, it looks like he's giving Beijing everything it wants without extracting meaningful concessions or addressing legitimate security concerns. That's not tough negotiation, that's what critics would call being played by a strategic rival. Patel's accusation that Labour are gaslighting the public about Chinese espionage is strong language that deserves unpacking. She's essentially saying Labour is denying or minimizing a threat that Britain's intelligence services have been warning about for years. She cites intelligence assessments describing China's espionage campaign as operating on a pretty epic scale, which isn't hyperbole from politicians, but assessment from professionals whose job is understanding these threats. The phrase, "Starmer is so feeble he kowtows to China at every opportunity, regardless of the cost to our country," is designed to paint the Prime Minister as weak and willing to compromise British interests for short-term economic gains or diplomatic photo ops. Whether that characterization is fair depends entirely on whether you think engagement with China is necessary pragmatism or dangerous naivety.
The conservative claim that only the conservatives can be trusted to protect Britain's national interest is predictable opposition rhetoric. But it's landing in a context where Labour's handling of China policy does look questionable. When you've got a collapsed spy trial, a proposed mega embassy with torture basement concerns, and a prime minister planning to visit Beijing despite all this, the accusations of being soft on China gain traction. The nickname Here Keir that's attached itself to Starmer is particularly damaging because it taps into a broader perception that he's more interested in international photo opportunities than fixing domestic problems. The claim that he's on course for 25 foreign trips this year, true or exaggerated, feeds that narrative. And now adding a China trip to that itinerary when China policy is already controversial makes the Never Here criticism even more potent. The security concerns about China aren't fringe conspiracy theories. They're mainstream assessments from intelligence services and security experts. China operates extensive espionage networks in Western countries, targeting technology, military secrets, political influence, and monitoring dissidents abroad. Britain's security services have repeatedly warned about these threats, making this a genuine national security issue rather than just political point scoring. The question of how to balance economic engagement with security concerns is genuinely difficult. Britain needs trade and investment. China is the world's second-largest economy and a crucial trading partner for many British businesses. Completely cutting off engagement would have economic costs that would hurt British workers and companies. But engaging without adequate safeguards or while appearing to ignore security threats creates different kinds of costs that might be even more damaging long-term. The proposed mega embassy is particularly controversial because embassies enjoy diplomatic immunity, making them difficult to monitor or control. If China builds a massive facility in central London with basement rooms they won't explain, what happens there is largely beyond British jurisdiction. The allegations about potential torture facilities might sound extreme, but China's treatment of dissidents, both domestically and abroad, give those concerns credibility that can't be dismissed. The collapsed spy trial raises questions about whether Labour has the competence or will to actually prosecute Chinese espionage when they catch it. If alleged spies can escape consequences because prosecutions collapse, that sends a message to Beijing that espionage in Britain carries minimal risk. That's not just weak, that's actively counterproductive to deterring future operations. Starmer's visit to China would inevitably involve meetings with Xi Jinping and other senior Chinese officials, photo opportunities that would be used by Beijing for propaganda purposes, showing Western leaders engaging respectfully with China despite its authoritarian practices and aggressive behavior. Those optics matter internationally and send signals about whether Britain is willing to stand up to Chinese pressure or will fold in exchange for trade promises. The trade improvements Labour hopes to secure need scrutiny too. What exactly is Britain getting in exchange for this engagement? Are we talking about genuine market access that will benefit British businesses, or vague promises that amount to little in practice while previous governments have made trade deals with China that looked good on paper but delivered limited real benefits while requiring significant British concessions?